Hello and welcome to another better than your average podcast, Pittsburgh Sports Memories. And Tim, I'm Steve Wirt, and I'm joined by my co-host Tim Hannon, and we're definitely better than all those other podcasts, right, Tim?
Most of them. I'd
Most of
say
them,
like 90%.
and we're humble too. Yes, so
Always. That's why I said 90% because
yeah,
I don't saying 100% would make us not humble.
it's that 10% that makes the difference.
That's absolutely right.
So on this episode, we will cover someone who doesn't need to be humble. I think he kind of is. I never remember him bragging too much. We're gonna one of the greatest defensive backs of all time. He single-handedly could turn the outcomes of game. He also made this miraculous recovery in season to play in a Super Bowl. And of course, we're talking about the one, the only Mr. Rod Woodson. So, to begin with, Rod Woodson, where did he play college at? He played at a school called Purdue, which I guess, I mean, who else came out of Purdue football wise? Did somebody else?
Drew Brees.
Drew Brees, yeah. Brian Greasy? Bob Greasy? I don't know. One of them. He had 11 career interceptions and he returned 3 for touchdowns, and that's kind of like going to become Rod's thing. It's like when he gets an interception, he seems to return it for a touchdown. Um, track and field. He did a lot of track and field. He actually qualified for the 1984 Olympic trials, and he held the records in the 60 and 110-meter hurdles at Purdue. And he had a NCAA record for the 55-meter hurdles. I don't know why there's like a 60-meter hurdle and a 55-meter. That extra 5 meters just makes a big difference. So I don't know what all that's about, but he was really fast, apparently. Um, so coming into the draft, Rod Woodson's highly rated. He's not like there's not much secret. He's going to go pretty high in the draft. But the Steelers are drafting 10th overall, which for the Steelers, that's kind of high. They've not been drafting that high. And the team expected Woodson to be drafted before their turn. They figured one of the other teams would take him. So Chuck Nolan, defensive coordinator Tony Dungy, they were like, we're not even going to get bothered with a scouting report on Woodson because, we're probably not going to get him. So, however, what happened was the Browns traded for the San Diego Chargers' 5th overall pick and used that selection to pick Mike Junkin. Ooh, have you ever heard of Mike Junkin?
Nope, but if it was the Browns, I'm not surprised.
I mean, this was in the Browns in the 80s. They were kind of competent. That was
That's true.
the St. Louis Cardinals. Yes, the baseball team. No, this would be the St. Louis Football Cardinals. Is that how I have to say it?
That's right.
They drafted Kelly Stouffer,
I
and
remember him. Yeah, quarterback. Yeah.
he never played for the Cardinals due to a contract dispute. So that was
Hmm.
a great pick by the St. Louis Football Cardinals. Maybe they should have drafted him to play baseball. I don't know. Um, the Bills were the last likely team to draft Woodson, but they drafted linebacker Shane Conlon. That's hard to believe. Like that's like 3 top linebacker picks before him, and I think Brian Bosworth went earlier than him too.
Hmm.
So they fall to him and they draft him even without a scouting report. I guess he was so good they didn't need one. Um, and actually, the 1987 draft ends up being one of the best drafts of the 1980s because they also drafted Hardy Nickerson, Merrill Hodge, and Greg Lloyd.
Oh, wow.
So they actually got 2 very good linebackers way later in the draft. Maybe the Browns should have taken Hardy Nickerson. I don't know, but
Or Rod Woodson.
yeah, yeah. So, coming into this year, now you got to remember it's 1987, there's no free agency. That doesn't happen until the 90s. And there was still it was weird. The NFL, remember when the NFL used to go on strike, Tim?
Oh, that's right. That was a strike season, 87.
I think
Yeah.
they only missed one game.
Well, there were three. So that year, so there was a strike earlier in the decade where they just canceled games. 82. That was like ended up being like a 9-game season. 87, the owner said, "We're not canceling games. We're going to play with scab players."
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
So like Steve Bono was our scab quarterback for the Steelers, and then all these other guys that you would have never seen ever again. It was the guys you cut like in the first preseason
yeah.
game. That's who played, and there were like 3 weeks of that. But what ended up happening was a bunch of guys crossed the picket line.
Yeah.
So I think Mike Webster might have been one of those guys too. If you look at his stats from that year, so there were guys that did play in 15 games or 14 games or whatever, and then there were other guys that didn't.
So Rod Woodson and I guess this was just kind of on brand for that time. They thought they weren't getting paid enough. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. He ends up being a draft holdout. So what he does is he goes and runs track in Europe while holding out. He ended up not going to training camp or anything. And he also said, and I don't know if this is like legit or he was just negotiating. He said he wanted to compete in the 1988 Olympics. So that would have been the following summer in South Korea, I do believe.
Yep.
His holdout actually lasted till October. He didn't debut until November 8th. I think he signed on October 28th. And his agent said it was the biggest. Well, at that time, it was the biggest contract in team history. And his agent said it was a little less than Vinny Testaverde and Brian Bosworth. So, boy, the '87 draft is a weird one, huh? Vinny Testaverde. I guess Vinny had a successful career. He wasn't terrible.
Not really for the team that drafted him though.
Yeah,
It was Tampa Bay, and I remember I actually remember that when he was holding out because everybody was like, "Oh, well, that was a bust of a pick."
yeah. Yeah,
Like,
I didn't find much fan reaction in the papers, but yeah, I was wondering about that. How did
yeah,
people feel back then? Were they mad at Rod Woodson, or were they just kind of like, oh, he's a bum, or
I think it was more, and I was I was young, I was a kid at the time, but I what I remember was it wasn't so much they were mad at him. I think we get more mad at like the Le'Veon Bells, like the players that were already here that we knew that hold out.
yeah,
This was like a draft pick, and then he was the fact that he was running track in Europe. Because remember, this was also the era where like Bo Jackson told, was it Tampa Bay, like, nope, I'm going to go play baseball instead. John Elway told the Colts he was
yeah,
going to go play baseball instead. So this was the era where if you drafted somebody and they didn't really want to play for you, that you would just go play another sport. That kind of seemed like a thing. And so I think that what I remember was the thought process was more just people were mad at the Steelers because the Steelers really kind of stunk at this point, and they had made kind of personnel mistake after personnel mistake for a couple of years, and it was like, oh, here we go again, another wasted draft pick, just like Daryl Sims and John Ringstra and Walter Abercrombie and all the guys that had preceded Woodson. That like it was more like the Steelers screwed up. I think was the reaction.
yeah. And it's kind of weird. Like it just you don't see holdouts per se. Like T.J. Watt kind of did like a in camp holdout. Like he went to camp, but he didn't participate or something weird like
Yeah.
that. And doesn't this break the Dan Rooney? Remember Dan Rooney had that rule that he never negotiates during the season? Was that not a thing at this time? Or
Oh, that's a good point.
I was thinking
That's a good. Maybe he didn't
because
know
like
that
in the
was in.
paper it literally says Dan Rooney was negotiating with his agent. So it wasn't his brother was there, I guess, but
His
I don't
father was still alive at the time
yeah.
too.
Well,
Uh,
I doubt, the chief was doing anything with football
yeah,
operations.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. I maybe he had not instituted that role by that point.
But they've broke it now since he's no longer, no, passed away and not running the team anymore. But so a fun thing happened. We'll do maybe some fun facts here. In 1988, they had remember they used to do these fastest mans and most accurate quarterback competition. You know what? They should replace whatever they're doing at the Pro Bowl with this kind of stuff. Like, I'd rather see this than dodgeball. I mean, I guess you could still keep the dodgeball, but it'd be fun to see who's the fastest man. And actually, Rod Woodson, if we'll have video, we'll post it to our website, our link. and he gets all the way to the final and loses to Darrell Green, who's another defensive back. He actually beats Willie Galt and some running back from Denver. I think I didn't recognize him, but Willie Galt was pretty fast. In his first game, he plays against Kansas City. He actually replaces Lupe Sanchez, the immortal Lupe Sanchez, as nickel corner. He played mainly. They were only putting him in on pass plays for real pass plays. And he has a solid year. He has one interception. He returns for a touchdown, and I do believe we have video of that.
Esiason being chased out of the pocket, throws, and it's nearly intercepted, and finally is picked off. Rod Woodson, the rookie from Purdue.
What an athlete.
Woodson brings it back for a touchdown, his first NFL touchdown.
And Tony Dungy said last night, the defensive coordinator, we want to work Woodson in there. Former #1 draft choice from Purdue University.
Who was that announcer with the really New York accent? Do you know, Tim?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was Sam Rutigliano, who was the one time.
Oh, Red Right 88.
Yeah, coach of the Browns. Yeah, that's that's who it sounded like to me. It sounded like Sam.
That's pretty awesome. So, for the people on the podcast that aren't watching, Boomer Esiason throws a pass. It deflects off another defensive back. Like literally threw it. Like he didn't throw it. The other guy cut in front of the receiver, and there was like 3 other Steelers there, but it pops right to Rod Woodson, who runs back it for a touchdown and then taunts. It looks like Riverfront Stadium, Tim. That looks like in Cincinnati.
It was in Cincinnati. Yep.
He taunts like some high school kids that were apparently going to play at halftime or at the end of the game or something. So it was pretty cool. At the end of the season, the Steelers are pretty mediocre. Tim says they stink. I don't know. They went 8-7. I mean, nowadays that's celebrated. It's a non-losing season, Tim.
Well, a couple of those wins were the scab team.
Okay.
So.
And just another fun fact: at the end of the season, Rod Woodson blocks a Matt Barr punt or a Matt Barr extra point on the last game of the season, but they still lose. Delton Hall, ironically enough, is voted Rookie of the Year, not Rod Woodson. So, they do play in the playoffs. He does 92 through 96. The infamous 3rd and Sammy game in 92, I think. Rod Woodson, broke his wrist and had to go out in a season. The Steelers were like 12-4, and the Bills came back, and I think that was Jim Kelly. Was it Jim Kelly or?
It was Frank Reich.
It was Frank Reich still that game?
Yep.
And they had a guy named Sammy Walker who was Rod Woodson's backup, and every time we got the 3rd down, they just okay, put James Lofton out there on Sammy Walker, and it was a total mismatch. And the Bills kind of blew out the Steelers. So, and in 96, he does leave the team for free agency. It's kind of weird. He has his own little workout in Purdue when he leaves. I forget how much he signed for, but he only went for San Francisco for 1 year. And he finishes up his career, in Baltimore and Oakland. In Baltimore, he's actually, I think they move him to safety, right? And he's part of one of the greatest defenses of all time outside of the Steel Curtain, that 2000 Baltimore Ravens. And then he's really good in Oakland too. He's pretty good with, playing safety in Oakland. And I think he makes another Super Bowl with Oakland, doesn't he?
Correct.
Yeah. And that's how he finishes up his career. He was a member of the 75th anniversary team in 94. He's made the Pro Bowl 11 times. And in 2009, he's a Hall of Fame inductee. So that's kind of an overview on his career. We're going to get into Tim did a pretty cool list on his old website, and he did a top 10 Rod Woodson games. So instead of me reciting every stat and everything that's pretty boring, we'll go through some of the games. And I think some of these games will have highlights for, some not. But are you ready, Tim, for the top 10 list that you created? And then
yeah, I did that list. I think you said 2009 was when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So that's when I made that list. And
so this list is over 10 years old. Not that Rod Woodson has played a lot of football since 2009.
No, it probably does not need updated. But the thing about Rod Woodson, I've said on the show before, he's probably still my all-time favorite Steeler. And the thing that was special about him was he you said at the beginning, his impact on games for that position, a cornerback. Like if you're a quarterback or even like a wide receiver or running back or maybe like a Joe Green or TJ Watt, like some those guys have a huge impact, can have a huge impact on a game. Usually a cornerback can help, shut down a player that's a threat, that kind of stuff. But usually you're not going to point to the cornerback and say that's the reason we won the game. And Rod Woodson had a bunch of games where you could say, man, he like won us that game. And I thought that's what made him so special.
So we'll start with number 10 versus Houston. We're playing the Oilers in 90. It's a tight early season contest. It's at Three River Stadium, so we're at home. It had already been a wild game. The Steelers' offense is struggling. Joe Walton, we can call it the Joe Walton effect, had not been able to get in the end zone. The offense actually did not score a touchdown until week 5 of that season. Greg Lloyd got himself ejected for jumping on an official's foot. What the heck? Was he like Yosemite Sam? Like, what the flabby? And
he was arguing. He was arguing with a ref. We posted that on our Facebook page at one point, that clip. He's arguing with the ref. He's sort of jumping up and down angrily, not meaning to jump on the guy's foot, but he did. And then the ref was like, nope, okay, you're gone.
Yeah. So the Steelers, they hold a slim lead late in the fourth quarter, and they needed to get some more points on the board. Fortunately, Woodson came through in the clutch.
Steelers they really have got nothing going. There's just no sense of rhythm.
The kick end over end. Woodson makes a good move.
He did that one all by himself. Usually in punt returns, you get 1 or 2 blocks.
Oh, that's right. He was a great punt returner, too. And they used to put him on reverses, too, on offense. And he raced 52 yards for a touchdown, giving the Steelers a 2-scored lead. And then he made some big plays in the defense at the end, holding off Houston's potent passing game, securing a big divisional victory. I remember Cowher played him a little bit on offense, and then didn't he almost get hurt? Cowher was like, nope, you're not playing no more.
Yeah. That was very short-lived. But special teams, I mean, he was a really good kick returner. And that was a Sunday night game against Houston at the River Stadium. I was at that game, Steve. And it was so miserable. I mean, like our offense, this was like you said, the Joe Walton couldn't do anything offense. And then he just says, okay, I'll do it myself.
That's Rod. All right. This is only 9. I can't believe there's only 9. But this is a great moment. Although he didn't play a huge role in Super Bowl 30. He did play, which is amazing. In the season opener, he was trying to tackle Barry Sanders, and Barry Sanders is tough to tackle. So he kind of faked Rod Woodson out of his ACL. And that was a big blow because the Steelers almost missed the playoffs because of that. They ended up, because they had, I think it was Alvoid Mays, who was his backup. And so they were just terrible. So they ended up playing Carnell Lake to corner, and they got some guy named Cordell on offense, and they were able to score some points. And so they kind of saved their season. And the whole year, Rod Woodson saying, if we make it to the Super Bowl, I'm going to play. And everybody like, yeah, right. Sure. Sure enough, the whole year, they get to the Super Bowl, and there he is. He's dressed, and he played. Now, I think he only played like 1 play, maybe 2. But he did knock a pass away from Michael Irvin, and then he pointed to his knee, just kind of talking trash to Michael Irvin.
Yeah, it wasn't that he played a big role in that game. It was just the significance of him playing in that game meant a lot. And also, again, we can't say it enough times, just makes the Neil O'Donnell interceptions that much more painful because everything about that season was storybook.
Yeah. So moving on to number 8, 96 versus the Ravens. Wooden's final season with the Steelers had a tumultuous beginning. The opener at Jacksonville, the team lost All-Pro Greg Lloyd for the year. Jim Miller won the starting job and then wasn't the starting. They started all 3 quarterbacks, and all 3 quarterbacks looked horrible. I remember that. And as they entered week 2 against the Ravens, the first ever meeting between the 2 franchises.
But that was the first ever game and the first ever pass in the history of Steelers Ravens.
and it's an interception by the aforementioned higher draft pick, Vinny Testaverde. And I think you sent me video of this, Tim.
Yeah, we have video of that if you want to play it.
Yeah, it's a real floater. He throws like an out route that just absolutely floats for Vinny Testaverde because he's Vinny.
And a second down play for the Ravens. 2nd and 8. And Testaverde picked off. Intercepted by Rod Woodson, and he is in for the touchdown.
So that's the beginning of the Steelers Ravens rivalry, huh?
Yep, that's how it starts. That's how it all begins, is with a Rod Woodson pick six.
I think the Steelers definitely win that game.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. And great Rod Woodson moment, and Vinny was always good for an interception a game against the Steelers. For whatever reason, he did not play well against the Steelers. And he kind of floated it. It was an out route. And then it's great that Marv Albert, and that was so loud, the crowd, like my headphones like buzzed when he got that interception. And then Tad Marchibroda as the coach. Wow, what a scene, man, in Three River Stadium. Nice. Number 7, Rod Woodson moment versus the Chargers in '89. The Steelers were 4-6 and been shut out 2 of their previous 4 games. I think they make the playoffs still this year, don't they?
So yeah, remember we just did
a whole
about
podcast. Yeah. They come home, face the Chargers at week 11. Things didn't appear to be getting any better. All the team could muster was, is this still the Joe Walton offense?
This is the Tom Moore offense in '89.
Well, we're making progress. 2 Gary Anderson field goals, trailing 10-6 in the third quarter. Woodson decided to provide the offense all by himself. He took a kickoff back 84. Oh, he did kickoffs too? I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
For a touchdown. It was key because the Chargers and quarterback Jim McMahon. Wow. Jim McMahon was the quarterback for the Chargers?
Yeah. Wow,
I didn't know that. We're dominating time possession. They only had the ball for 4 plays during the third quarter. The kick return absolutely deflated them. The play not only helped those Steelers to a victory, but also got them back in the playoff hunt. They won 5 out of the final 6 games, the qualifier for the postseason. Like we said, you can go back and listen to that podcast. That is quite an amazing season. And I didn't realize Jim McMahon played for the Chargers. Mm-hmm. I remember playing for Green Bay and didn't he get a Super Bowl ring with Green Bay in the 90s?
Yeah,
I think so.
He did. He was Brett Favre's backup.
But wow. So a big win on their way to a pretty remarkable season. In '92, the Lions were 2-7 because they're the Lions and that's how they roll. They came to Pittsburgh for a midseason game with the Steelers, but they sure didn't play like a 2-7 team. Detroit overcame a 10-0 deficit thanks in part to Barry Sanders. He scored a touchdown late in the fourth quarter, which gave the Lions a 14-10 lead. On the other side of the ball, the Steelers' offense was sputtering. Neil O'Donnell had left the game with a pulled hamstring. And bring in the Bubster, who has to mop up. The game appeared to be over when Detroit got the ball back with over 3 minutes left in the game. And the worst case was they were just going to punt and watch Brister haplessly go 4 and out. But Woodson made sure that wouldn't happen. Oh, Eric Kramer. Oh, boy, there's another crappy quarterback, huh? Didn't he play for the Bears at one point?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Bears and a Lions quarterback. Ooh. Eric Kramer he actually blitzed Eric Kramer, forced him to fumble the ball at his own 3. And when it was recovered by Cardinal Lake, that led to a short touchdown pass from Brister to Tim Jordan, the immortal Tim Jordan, which won the game for the Steelers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, like the Steelers weren't going to do anything on offense like that Houston game. So it's like, okay, I'll take matters into my own hands and get you the ball back at the 3-yard line so you can win it.
Hey, here's the Cincinnati game we were talking about before he returned the touchdown. Hey, Chuck Noll, when they drafted him, said, I am in love with that guy. And like we said, when the draft holdout happened, maybe that love was on the rocks. Love on the rocks. But he gets a 45-yard pick 6 off a boomer, and they go on to win the game. And we got a glimpse of Steeler greatness by Rod Woodson. Here's a game that we've talked about a couple of times. At Houston in 89, Jerry Glanville leaves his tickets for Elvis. We're not sure if Elvis was in the building. But after this play, I think he left. So that was this 89. Boy, what a magical season 89 was.
Yeah, this was the playoff game in Houston.
Yeah. And the Oilers got great field position inside the Steeler territory thanks to subpar Harry Newsom punt. I think they're in overtime at this point, right?
Yeah, this was so they're tied in overtime.
Yeah,
Houston has the ball.
Yeah, Lorenzo White and like literally Woodson comes in like a freaking ball-seeking missile and just knocks the ball out. And we will play this one for you. It's a great clip. More Marv Albert. Boy, we got a lot of Marv Albert on this episode, do we? Yes. Woodson.
Down at the Pittsburgh 45. And it's to the ground for Lorenzo White. And he's hit for the loss. He fumbled. And the Steelers recover. Rod Woodson on the recovery.
Woodson makes the hit and also makes the recovery.
That's just an amazing play. You don't realize, like, he just came in there like a heat-seeking missile, man, and just destroyed Lorenzo White.
And then he recovers it, too.
Yeah, it's like he didn't even realize the ball. Like, if you watch, he's laying there and the ball's laying beside him. He doesn't even realize the ball's loose. It's like,
yeah.
And they were lucky they tackled him. That was like a shoestring tackle because if he almost, like, it looked like he was going to go out to score on that. So.
Yeah. The only thing he didn't do was kick the field goal.
Yeah.
Gary Anderson had to do that, but man, it's just once again, and that was such a big deal. And again, we did a whole episode on that season, but that was such a big deal because the Steelers weren't even supposed to be in the playoffs, much less win a game at the Astrodome.
And Astrodome was a tough place to play back then, the House of Pain, as they called it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're moving up the list. Number 3. The Saints in 93. The Saints were the best team in football. What? In 93? Really?
When they came to Three River Stadium in 93, they were 5-0.
I did not remember that. Yeah. The offense was nearly 30. Who was their quarterback?
I believe it was Wade Wilson.
Not Hebert, not Bobby Hebert. No. When New Orleans came to Three Rivers to face the Steelers, Pittsburgh knew they would need a big defensive effort to stop them. They got one for the best player. In the first quarter alone, Woods intercepted 2 passes in the first quarter. Ran back the first interception 63 yards. The second pick occurred deep in Saints territory, set up another score. Prior to the game, there he is. Wade Wilson had not been picked off in 107 pass attempts. Woods intercept 2 of his first 4 passes, just like the Steelers were up 14-0. Then they would cruise to a dominating 37-14. That year, Woodson would be named Defensive Player of the Year, an award which he practically clinched in this game alone. Wow. I didn't realize he was Defensive Player of the Year in 93.
Yeah, that was
kind of a down year for the Steelers, too.
It was. We did an episode about that season, too. It was. We called that the roller coaster season.
Yeah, because that was the Mark Royals punt and
yeah. I mean, and all the ups and downs they had that year, where it's like, oh, they're going to the Super Bowl. Oh, they stink. They're not even going to make the playoffs. That was kind of a week to week thing that year. But
DJ Johnson kicked the guy in the head.
Yes, yes. Yep. Yeah, a lot of weird stuff that season, but he was real good.
Number 2, the Oilers again. Bill Cowher's first game as head coach. They had the fake punt. Speaking of Mark Royals, I think it was Mark Royals who threw that pass.
It was
that fake punt. Yeah. Few people, despite the Steelers, still trailed the Oilers 24-19. Houston's powerful run and shoot offense was driving and had a first down at the Pittsburgh 43. That's when Woodson steps in. On a first down, he jumped over running back Lorenzo White, and then he knocked down a Warren Moon pass. On 3rd and 2, he hurdled an offensive lineman and ran completely across the field and tackled White. Boy, Lorenzo White really didn't have a great career against Rod Woodson, did he?
No, he didn't.
He wasn't bad. He was a decent running back.
He was very good, yeah.
Yeah. Woodson was far from finished. Halfway through the 4th quarter, he picked off Moon in the end zone. Another game-clinching drive. It set the Steelers up for the go-ahead. he returned to 57 yards to set up the go-ahead score. So they're literally about to score. Then Woodson picks it off, and it's like a total reversal for fortune. And 2 interceptions, 3 deflected passes, 7 tackles, and 2 driving killing stops. Woodson wasn't even supposed to be playing. He had a knee injury that had been slowing him down. Wow. Number 1, Peace Diaz Restance, to add some French to the podcast. This is versus the Bills in 94. And anytime the Steelers played the Bills in the early 90s, it was bad for the Bills. It's kind of like a role reversal now that they have Josh Allen, huh? Anytime the Steelers play the Bills. This is like a streaky series. Like one team always dominates the other.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Woodson jumped the Kelly pass and returned it 37 yards for a Steeler touchdown. In the second half, the Bills mounted a comeback and trailed by only 6 points. When Woodson struck again, he nailed Kelly on a blitz and forced him to fumble in the end zone, where Gerald with the G. Williams fell on the ball to give the Steelers a 23-10 lead. It ended up being the final score. The Steelers offense never sniffed the end zone. The defense had to deal with 4-time defending AFC champions. Rod Woodson single-handedly accounted for the team's only touchdowns. This is why he's so feared. So I think, do we have video of this one?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, we have both of them. All right. A double treat for all the folks listening. We're going to hear more Rod Woodson greatness. You can never get enough of it, right, Tim?
That's right.
Now the crowd starts to come into it. 2nd and 4. And it is picked off by Rod Woodson. Goodbye. Touchdown, Pittsburgh. Oh, we told you he would gamble. If that would have been a hitch and go, it would have been 6 the other way. But he will take the...
But it wasn't Frank Gifford. It wasn't.
And Kelly gets sacked. The ball is loose. And it's a touchdown. Gerald Williams with a TD. Rod Woodson created it.
That's pretty awesome. And that fact that another game where they literally had no offense.
Yeah, that was it. That was neither team scored a touchdown on offense, and he scored 2. I mean, like, again, who does that as a defensive player, right? And that was a Monday night game. That was big. Like you said, the Bills were the 4-time defending AFC champions at the time, so it wasn't like they weren't a
slouch.
Yeah, and he accounts for all the touchdowns in that game.
So Rod Woodson's really good. This just in.
He is, and like we talked about, we did that episode on Tom Donahoe, and we talked about, when he left, it was just unfortunate.
Yeah, he wasn't. I think he wasn't as good as. He was a little overvalued. That was still kind of like free agency only had been around 3 or 4 years, so maybe he got a little more than he should have. Or, and the Steelers maybe offered him a little less than they should. I don't know.
It wasn't. I think what upset a lot of Steelers fans was not that he left for San Francisco, because, like you said, he had been coming off the injury. He had a really subpar year that last year. Remember you didn't talk about the New England playoff game, but
he got juked out by Curtis Martin.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't think anybody was like really upset that necessarily people were sad that he left, but it was whenever things didn't go well in San Francisco, and then he was a free agent in 98, like 2 years later.
Yeah.
And that's when Baltimore brought him in to be a safety. And then, like you said, he had this great renaissance to his career. And a lot of Steeler fans wanted us to do the same thing. And that's when Tom Donahoe said, "We're not the Salvation Army." And that really, people never forgot that. And people were really upset by that.
And they needed a safety too. They really didn't. I mean,
yes.
How many? They had Brent Alexander. They had that kid from Wolford, Scott Shields.
Yeah,
they had Lee Flowers, but he was more of a strong safety. I don't know.
They could have. He would have been a valuable, and then he would have been on like that 2001 team.
Yeah, he would have retired a Steeler. That he never would have left the Steelers again.
And he would have been on that 2001 team that lost to the Patriots in the championship game. He would have been on some good teams.
He probably would have. He might have been on the 2000. No, he retired in 2003. So
He would have been on that 2002 team that couldn't stop the pass.
yeah,
The loss to that gave up 30 points in each of the playoff games. Like again, it would have been not just nostalgic, like we love this guy, it would be nice to bring him back. It actually would have benefited the team.
yeah.
And I to this day will maintain that that was a huge mistake. And it seemed like we did it for petty reasons.
I will say this: like I think, like they just he wanted more than they are willing to pay, and maybe both sides should have met in the middle. I don't know. I don't know how much money he ended up getting in Baltimore and Oakland, but
I don't think it was that. I think literally Donahoe was like,
it's just like I'm not bringing back somebody. He was like a scorned lover at that
yes,
point.
that's exactly right. I don't think it had anything to do with figures or numbers or anything. It was just like, nope, you don't want to be a Steeler. We don't want you here. You left, and so you're never welcome back.
And what that and I could see that with a guy with like AB or Le'Veon Bell or like even like Garrett Blunt, but like him, he never caused any
Yes.
trouble.
Yes.
Besides in contract negotiations, that's the only time I ever heard him ever causing any, they had any drama with him. But they had that with Hines Ward too, and he's the most loyal Steeler ever. Mike Webster, another guy who was a lawyer, you said, went on strike for a couple games. So, well, we'll get to his legacy. Let's go with the fun part here. Let's argue sports talk radio arguing, Tim. I don't think I'm going to get much of an argument from you, though.
No.
Woodson finishes with 71 interceptions. He returned a total of 1,483 yards, 12 of them for touchdowns. I think that's still the record for career returns for touchdowns. By comparison, Deion Sanders has 53, and Deion has less than Dick LeBeau at 62. So who's the best cornerback of all time? There's a Fox Sports article. I don't know if it was from like a year or two ago. They ranked Darrell Green, Deion Sanders, Champ Bailey. I think they ranked him second. Mel Blount was like in the bottom half, but they had like Deion number 1 and Woodson number 2. So I mean it's debatable. I guess maybe if you're going pure corner, probably Deion would be the better choice. But if I like a guy that can actually play like football, like can actually tackle and do. I don't know. I know like teams where like he was susceptible to the double move a lot because he gambled. Like what's his name? Frank Gifford wasn't wrong. He did get burned a lot because like he gambled. And like I've often heard I once heard Edmund Nelson, who used to do the Steeler post game, say that like he probably should have been a safety his whole career because he liked although I mean you really shouldn't be gambling. Maybe like strong safety you can gamble a little bit, but he really could tackle. Like he really was quite talented at it. He was very physical for a corner, and Deion never was. But that really wasn't Deion's game, and I know I'm holding that against him, but isn't part of football tackling people and physicality? Am I wrong here, Tim? Am I so far off base thinking that he's the better overall football player? But if you're just saying pure coverage corner, then I would agree with you. Deion's the better player. But if you're saying overall football player, I don't think he's even in the same class as Dick LeBeau or heck Darrell Green. Darrell Green was just as fast and smaller and would tackle people. There's all kinds of videos of him running people down and tackling them. So
yeah, it's tough when you do I would agree with you that Deion probably was a better coverage guy, but Deion, the other thing, like you played that clip of the Bills game, Rod Woodson would come on a corner blitz that knocked the ball out of the quarterback's hands. That was something you never saw Deion do. Now maybe if Deion plays in a Dom Capers defense or a Dick LeBeau defense, maybe he can do that. I don't know, but that's not something you ever really saw him do. So you're right. I think Woodson was a more complete player. I think he also proves that by having success later in his career.
He has a much longer career than Deion. Like once Deion's feet, you ever see a picture? Like, he got his one toe finally amputated. Mm-hmm. Just like, that's why he was on crutches that one season when he was coaching Colorado. Or what was the other team? He was on like that little scooter thing. Because in his credit, Deion, it isn't like Deion is soft. Like Deion like played through like a pretty nasty toe injury. Like his toe is so messed up. I think they just cut it off. Like he had to have it amputated. So, but I didn't mean to interrupt. But to get to your point, once he lost his speed, he couldn't play anymore. Like, remember the Redskins signed him, and then he retired for 2 years, and he came back with Baltimore. And
that's right. He played for the Ravens. He actually played against like the Ben Roethlisberger Steelers as a member of the Ravens. But he was never. He just was so done by then. He peaked in those Falcons, 49ers, Cowboys mid-90s years. And then he never really was good again. And Woodson, I think, because of being the more complete player, had a longer career. But then it's tough. Like when you get outside of those two, I mean, like you said, Darrell Green, I think he kind of gets a short end of the stick. He was really good, and he might have been just as good as both of those guys. And then you compare eras, like Mel Blount. I mean, they had
to change a rule because of him.
Yeah. And early in his career, they didn't pass like they did today. Then you go back to like Dick LeBeau. I mean, my goodness, quarterbacks just kind of flung the ball around.
We forgot to mention Dick Night Train Lane, who has the most interceptions in one season, I think, still, right?
Yeah, and that record stood for 70 years.
Did somebody finally break it? Or
no. It was
because remember Rod Woodson at like 5 games had like 8 or 9. Remember that? And we thought, oh, he's going to break it. And then this is the argument people always make for Deion is Deion doesn't have a lot of interceptions because people stopped throwing to his side of the field. And the same thing happened to Rod Woodson with that season where he had like 8 or 9 interceptions real early in the year. People stopped throwing to that side of the field.
That's why again, stats, like especially interceptions, it can be such a misleading stat because look at Darrelle Revis as another guy from later on. People just didn't throw on that side of the field. You game planned around it. Back in Dick Night Train Lane's days, you just kind of threw the ball, and if it got picked off, oh well.
Well, he didn't even play football. He was at like an airline he worked on an airplane plant like across the street from the Rams facility in like Los Angeles. It was like, hey, I'll go try out for football. It's like, hey, I'm really good at this. And like he would clothesline people. Remember that? Like he had that move where he would like clothesline people. Like, oh my gosh, he was wild. Stuff that would get you suspended for the league for a season if you did now.
And that's why it's so hard to compare eras and stuff like that. Rod Woodson was dominant, and Rod Woodson won games, like we said.
I'm trying to think what year. Do you remember what year that was? Remember he had like 8 or 9. Like
I think that was that year he won
93
Player of the Year. Yeah.
Well, if you have any thoughts on Rod Woodson, or you're just a big Deion fan, or maybe you're a Darrell Green fan, he's in the, you really think Darrell Green's getting the short end of the stick, or maybe Champ Bailey. Give us a shout out on Facebook. Let us know who's the best. I'm sure Tim handles all the Facebook stuff. You'll have to post this to Facebook, see if we get any comments. But
do a who's the best cornerback poll. I think it's going to be a little biased if
it's Steeler fans.
Yep.
Yeah, tag like Cowboy fans or something. I don't know. Tag Deion himself. Like, he'll probably vote himself. No, Deion. So thanks for the listen. Check us out on Facebook. Instagram. What else are we on? We're
Twitter.
On Twitter. Yeah, Twitter. Whatever your social media fancy is, we appreciate all your viewers, and thanks for listening. God bless. We'll catch you next time.